Coffee. Here we are again.
Oh, Vera? Yeah.
So I guess today it's more of a continuation of the conversation that we had yesterday again. And I've noticed from our conversation another situation around a couple of clients that are in early-ish recovery in relationships and similar to what we spoke about, have found themselves reiterating over and over again that they're looking. Maybe their default is to continuously look over once they're triggered at the partner and kind of monitor busyness of them. Now, not necessarily in relation to them, but just in their own lives. The other person is busy in their own lives.
Mm-hmm.
And what I hear is that being described in many different ways. And I also hear um, just maybe a little bit of an overwhelm in the discrepancy of what that and what feels like power.
Yeah.
And basically, what is that? How do we describe that to people? What is that in love addiction terms? And what
Mm-hmm.
do we do once we know that that's what it is?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good one. So essentially what you're once again, you're describing PS, I love the sun shining over your head
Oh,
like a
sorry.
halo. Well, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. So what you're describing is essentially the love addiction, beginning of the understanding of the love addiction starting to land for the person who's in an early recovery relationship. So essentially, what we're witnessing is a person getting on with their own lives. Yeah, so we see a person who's getting on with their own lives, who has passion and investment in their own life. And on our side of the thing, which is the love addiction side of the thing, what we are feeling is potential abandonment, potential the person is not really bothered with us.
Mm,
We're plagued by a million different feelings of everything is more important to this person than me at this moment or the relationship.
mm,
And so all the old feelings of neglect, uh, abandonment, not being good enough, not being worthy enough, not being worthy of time spent, not being important enough, exciting enough, and on and on and on. There's like a million things on that list
mm,
that pertain to the love addiction's belief system around I'm just not worth spending quality time with, which is like
mm,
one of the core wounds of the love addict, which is a history of childhood, usually a history of childhood abandonment and neglect, chronic. So any flavor of that happening at all, which by all accounts and truths can be just an avoidant partner, like we spoke about yesterday,
mm,
but in recovery, going about the business of actually doing their own life, being invested in their own life, being invested in their work, being invested in other things and things that do not pertain to the relationship and do not pertain to the partner, the love addict.
mm,
On the love addict side of the thing, what's screaming on the interior is, I am being abandoned. I am being neglected. This person doesn't care about me. This person doesn't give a rat's ass about me. I am being neglected. I am being overlooked. And then
mm,
that then spirals and kind of dust balls into, what am I doing here? I don't want to be here. I want to get out of here. I want to blow this thing up. I want to get out. I can't do this. These are usually all the feelings that start to happen as a result of those feelings being triggered.
mm. So interesting. And it sounds so similar to what I hear. And it's interesting because, doing a little deep dive with people and a little investigations to give, like, getting more information on what happens. Sometimes it sounds like, so people have described it as like, getting really curious and throwing kind of slightly, I'm gonna say slightly, uh, it's like gathering information for a case, right? the love
Yeah.
addict or the clients are kind of asking their partners like, and what are you doing? Or what are you doing next week? Or what are you doing on? Or what does that look like? So it's these very interesting questions being asked, and it's not coming from when we investigate it together. They're not coming from a very blasé place. There's something loaded in the background. It's like
Hmm.
it's like throwing out these little questions around time, who, where, these kind of interest. And I think there's something so important to name that with people, that all these tiny, tiny things, it's almost like it's building a case for the love addiction always in the background. And
Hmm.
when we speak about it, it always comes back as, okay, what do I do instead? What do I
Mm,
do? What do I do? What do I do? And that's why we're
mm,
having these conversations, right? So
hmm.
once you do
Hmm.
that, what do you do?
Mm. So what you do is you realize you have to get very clear very quickly. You have to get very clear about what exactly we're dealing with. And like I describe a lot of the time that when we're in an early sex and love addiction, early recovery relationship, like so in the beginnings of a recovery relationship, there's not only two people in the relationship, there's actually four people. So there's like the person we really are attracted to and are very attracted to and attached to and love and care for. On the avoidant level, it's the person and then the avoidant. And on the love addiction side of it, it's like the person and then the love addiction. So it's
Mm,
like there's four people almost in the early relationship. And so we constantly have to keep our eye on the avoidant part of our partner, but not keeping an eye on them. Because for the love addict, the most important thing is we have to keep our eyes firmly on our side of the street.
mm,
Because the second the love addiction is up, the avoidant has no other recourse but to start putting serious distance between themselves and the love addiction that's being activated, that's literally hot on their heels. So that's what you're describing. You're describing the love addiction sending out all these like potential, feelers, like what are you going to be doing next Tuesday and who are you going to be doing with, and trying to say it in a very light and not bothered way. That you want the love addiction wants the avoidant partner to assume that it's all very blasé and light and airy and free, when in actual fact the love addiction is as heavy as lead and concrete and like 50 ballasts. It's so heavy, and so, which we will devote an entire chat time to, which is intensity versus intimacy. So
mm,
we know that love addiction is triggered when we start feeling intensity. And that's what you're describing, Sarah, when you're talking about clients talking about sending out these feelers to gauge where the avoidant is. Behind that, there's a whole metallic 18-wheeler that's coming through, that's intensity, which is
mm,
like doing something with your friend Sam. I'm trying to pretend I'm okay with that, but in brackets, I feel completely abandoned, comma, because you want to spend time with Sam over me, and I need to be the center point of your world.
mm,
This is the love addict thinking.
mm,
So
mm, mm.
if the avoidant partner is spending just some quality time with an old friend, the love addict, instead of feeling happy, joyous, and excited for their partner that they're actually getting to spend some quality time, they usually feel afraid, controlling, and abandoned and
Amazing.
intense.
Those words are it's so good to hear those words, because that's exactly what we arrive at with clients. Those words,
Yeah,
controlled. Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah. So it's the, just to get crystal clear, love addiction has very, at the beginning of recovery, has very little to do with the actual feeling of love.
Mm.
Eh, Love addiction at the beginning of recovery has everything to do with the feeling of control.
Oh, yeah,
So it's like, I need you to make me the center of your world, and I will do every single thing in my power to make that happen. But
absolutely.
all the
That
while, yeah, all the while
pretend,
pretend
pretend
it's light and airy, and I've got a million things I could be doing, right?
completely. Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
question you asked was, what do you do? What does the love addict do on their side of the fence if they're being triggered like that? The thing that the whole love addiction thing is, the whole thing that creates the whole mechanism for the love addiction to really catch hold and really fuel on, is the love addict is missing in their own lives a huge part of their own life.
Mm.
So I'm no mathematician. I can barely add one and one, and that's the honest to God truth, Sarah, as you well know. I've numerical dyslexia, which is a great way of describing that I think my left brain is completely missing.
Mm.
But anyway, as regards maths, anyway. But in my understanding and in my years of doing this work with others and with myself, is that I feel there's an incredible mathematical equation, like this equals that, to the amount of life that's missing in the love addict's life equals the exact amount of intensity that's focused at the avoidant when they're not making the love addict the center of their world.
Mm.
And
Oof.
now that sounds very to understand, but if you write that, anyone who's listening, if you write out that exact
Mm.
sentence that I said, really look at it,
Mm.
that's been my experience in over 2 decades of this work. It's
Mm.
almost like there's a direct mathematical equation to the big hole in the love addict's life that could be to
Absolutely.
do with a certain thing or many things, but often it's to do with one particular thing or two particular things. It could be the love addict could be missing a career,
Mm.
or they could be missing family of origin connection, or they could be missing friends
Community.
and social network. They could be missing, but there's a huge tranche of the love addict's life that is missing in translation.
Mm.
And it's that energetic that they are focusing on to the avoid and saying, it's your job to fill this up for me.
Well, it's incredible. I don't think that's a difficult mathematic at all. It's just
Yeah. Yeah.
imagining again, and we'll always encourage people to go back and listen to the other conversations because they're all interlinked on some level. The degree to which you feel upset. I'm going to use these words, even though some people might find them to be non-PC or difficult. But these are the words that people use to describe when the love addiction kicks in and is triggered. You feel crazy. You feel anger, rage, upset, silenced, all of those things. The degree to which you feel that is the percentage that you're driving that energy towards the other person. So if you
Yeah.
imagine that as a percentage, that's the thing that unconsciously you might not feel like you're doing it, that you're actually pointing in the direction of the other person, that that's the thing that they need to fix, even though you might not speak a fucking word of that to the
Mm,
other person. Energetically, that's
mm,
what's happening. And that's a piece that it's really important that when I hear it with people, clients, sometimes it takes a while for that to land, right? Because it is fitting into an energy sometimes, and really realizing that that's what's happening all the
mm,
time,
mm.
regardless of whether a word is uttered or not.
Yeah,
But then,
absolutely.
but when that piece comes in, sometimes with clients, I've often said, maybe don't ask the questions, you can sit on your hands, write the questions out, but don't ask them. You might want to feel
Yeah,
and sound curious, but maybe sit in the silence of that for a second. Talk about
exactly.
something completely on the surface, if you can. Talk about the fucking weather if you have to.
Absolutely. Bang on. That's it. That's exactly right. Because here's a bit like, and trust me, I'm going to come out with the clangers of because what we're trying to do here is our aim in this whole Recover Zing project is to give anybody who's listening, who's in love addiction, and in time, sex and love addiction, it's all the same thing anyway. It's just how we're displaying it. But our job doing this Recover Zing thing is to try and give you every single possible bit of information we know about this subject so that you can expeditiously move the dial for yourself in your own recovery as quickly as possible. And so because of that, there's going to be big reveals for your love addiction.
Mm.
And one of the big reveals that I was thinking about earlier. I went out for a run and I kind of thought, like, what are the big reveals about love addiction? And one of the biggest ones is one of the kind of the big belief, the big things we need to understand at depth as we move forward, shuffle forward on this journey, is that we can only be in a relationship that we don't need to be in.
Mm.
Oh, bingo.
Was there a sound there?
We
I
can,
didn't hear
that was my sound. That was my ding right there. Um, we can only be in a relationship that we don't need to be in. That is
Mm.
recovery from love addiction.
Mm.
Oh, there
Wow,
we go
that's
again.
a clanger. The bell
Yeah,
is a clang.
that's a zing right there. There's a zing. That's a zing that you could literally tattoo down your arm,
Yeah,
because we can only be in a relationship that we don't need to be in is an absolute truth for a love addict in
yeah.
recovery, in a relationship.
You know what's very interesting for you? I think that's a huge statement, huge. And I feel like this is something that we might jump into in another conversation almost immediately to really give
Yeah.
that the time and the landing and the gravitas that it needs, because it is right to try and actually let that land for the like, what do you mean? What do you mean? I know that. I know I would have a moment. So I feel like I wonder if we should pause, right? Leave every it's like a cliffhanger, like cliffhangers.
They went over the edge of the cliff.
Because
Did they live? Tune in tomorrow and we'll tell you about
did
that. Yeah.
they put up the parachute? I feel like that's a really big one, and maybe this time tomorrow, sometime tomorrow, we can come back and have a follow-up conversation on that, because that's a huge one. Just to go into some depth
Mhm,
around, because I hear it all the time. How do you know? How do you map that? And this is maybe in other areas that we've talked about in the past around how do you map that out in your own life on a piece of paper and a pen on any given day and
mhm,
know how to map that. And I think that would be a super helpful conversation to have coming off the back of
mhm,
what we just spoke about, to allow you
mhm,
to
mhm,
exactly do that, to come up, to avert your eyes from the other person and put it back onto your own life when you're in love
mhm,
addiction and go, fuck, these are the things that I need to have in place right now
mhm.
if I want this.
Yep.
So I know you had dinging in the background. So
Yeah.
maybe we can do that. Maybe tomorrow that will be our conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, 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 for sure. And I mean, that is something that that you're so right, Sarah, we can expand and expound on, because that truly is that's the center of the recovery from low addiction for sure. There's no
Mm,
greater truth for that. So in the meantime, just for the people that are struggling around that particular thing of their partner, what they deem as being overlooked or ignored, or something is more important or shiny for the avoidant, it's literally for the love addict to turn around, turn back to their own life and go, I need to start to track what is happening in my daily life. What is working? What is not working? What do I want? What do I need? What do regular people have in their lives that I don't seem to have? And that needs to be clarified really quickly,
so good.
because that's
Such
what we're going to be working on. Yeah.
super, super good information. It's really, really good and so actionable. And
Yeah.
yeah, very, very good. Oh, that's super. Or maybe yeah, just come back tomorrow
Hmm.
and pick it up from there. Well, I'll also
Okay.
have probably 5 other questions coming in from
Oh, yeah. Good. Yeah.
various
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
It's super helpful. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. All the
yeah. Okay.
way. Yeah.
All the way.
All the way. All the way. All the way. All the way. Okay. So we'll
Okay.
get back to you tomorrow, Sarah. And in the meantime, have a good evening.
You too, you too, you too. Everybody can do
Okay.
it. Okay. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.